This conference will now be recorded.
Okay. Now let us try to understand certain points from where we left in the last week. We talked about the golden rules of accounting. We talked about accounting cycle. We made some sample financial statement with which we prepared a trial balance, P&L, and then balance sheet. We understood how P&L balance sheet is prepared. Next one, we understood the reports that are related to trial balance and the financial statement version, which means from where your TB, P&L balance sheet is extracted from SAP system.
Hello, sir.
Yeah.
This T code is not working. Actually, I have tried these T codes in my company's screen, but the screen is open like inventory, physical inventory list, and another thing I forgot that report name actually. Can you show once in your system that S underscore ALR underscore 8701? What is it open?
First one.
Sir, this is the
Maybe.
same issue. Hello. Yeah, good evening, sir.
Yeah.
The same
Yeah,
issue
go ahead.
has been coming. Yeah, the same issue has been coming to my screen also. Like when we put that first T code, the last one is 2233. The business function is not something like that. But your P&L side is working fine. Like you have
Not
mentioned the
double two
P&L.
double three. It is 2277. I think my mistake. It's 2277, not double three. 2277. Okay, I'll remove the remaining ones. This is 2277.
That is
Okay, this
single
is
one
double two
for
double seven.
trial balance. That
Okay,
is
these are
GL
the
account
T codes
balance.
that I reversed. Yeah, these are the ones.
Okay.
Once we post the entries, I'll put the proper transaction codes. I'll open the T code. I'll tell you how to run the report, how to
Okay.
understand that report.
Okay. Sure, sir.
Yeah. All right. So we understood until creation of a simple financial statement, journal entries, ledger accounts, trial balance, P&L, and then balance sheet. Now let us try to understand business transactions in SAP FICO. In SAP FICO, what kind of a business transactions we will be posting? Let us try to understand. Now, as we know, there are different modules within SAP FICO, and within that you have different sub modules like GL, AP, AR, and all. Okay. Now, the different submodules like GL, AP, AR, cash, bank, integrations, taxation, what kind of entries are posted, how these entries are posted, these basics we need to understand before we get into any further discussions or before we get into SAP system. Because the intention is before you log into SAP system, before you look at the system, you need to have a basic understanding, basic overview about all these topics, at least 10 to 20%, so that you are not blank completely. You are aware of what is what, at least the definitions, the basic content. If you are aware of it, is easy for us to understand what we are doing, why we are doing, and it is then possible for you to get doubts, questions, confusion, which you can ask to get them clarified. But remember, if you're not getting any errors, if you're not getting any doubts, if you're not getting any confusions, what we are learning is not correct. If you're learning in the right way, you will lead to multiple question marks. You'll have a lot of questions running in your mind. All these questions, confusions, make sure you will get them clarified. Only then you feel comfortable, only then you will feel confident. Otherwise, at one particular time you will be blank somewhere, you will have a lot of questions running in your mind. It becomes very difficult for us to cross that level, because this confusion state will put us in a trouble wherein you cannot even talk to anybody even though you're aware of it. So these situations we should not create. These situations I don't want any of you to face. Now, when you talk about business transactions, let me write general ledger related transactions, and I will write accounts payable related transactions. Similarly, accounts receivable transactions, fixed asset related transaction, cash related transactions, bank related transactions, and taxation related transactions, integration related transactions. Basically, these are the nature of transactions that normally uses or that are normally used by any organization in any of the application. It is not specifically related to SAP. These are related from the business point of view, whether they are using SAP or they are using any other application. These are the similar transactions. Once a client is getting into SAP, they are not going to do any miracles or any wonders in SAP. Whatever is carried out on a day-to-day basis on their business process, same things as it is they will be doing on SAP system. Just the application is changing, the process will not get changed. So as a consultant, we need to make sure that we are not getting confused. You are able to understand the process. You are able to map it with the SAP system. That is where you need to bring your consulting skill set. That is where you need to bring your consulting knowledge. If you talk about general ledger, first we need to understand what is GL transaction. Now, if GL account is involved, I will call it as GL related transaction. We all know what is a GL account. Any asset, any liability, any income, any expense will be a GL account, which means your accounting entry is incomplete without a GL account. Whatever the accounting entry that you record, a debit and a credit must contain a GL account. In short, GL account or general ledger GL module includes everything. When we talk about includes everything, we are talking about 2 points here. Point number 1, main ledger. Point number 2, sub ledger. Information that is posted in the main ledger is part of a GL. Information that is posted on the sub ledger is also part of a GL. Next one, when you talk about accounts payable, you are talking about vendors
Sorry for
specific.
interrupting, Ajay.
Yes.
Yeah, actually, your voice is buffering, sometimes breaking.
Is it the same for everyone?
No, it's
No,
not.
Ajay.
No, it's
Okay.
not.
No, it's clear. The voice is clear. Maybe someone not able
Maybe
to hear
the
can start or rejoin.
yeah. Okay. Just try to rejoin. Maybe the internet issues from your side. Okay. Now the next one is
Yeah.
accounts payable. On the accounts payable, it is all related to vendor. In short, blindly you can remember any transaction that you are doing with vendor is a straight away part of accounts payable. What you do, what kind of entry you are recording to the vendor is secondary. The moment you find vendor name, it is straight away part of accounts payable. Accounts payable is part of a sub ledger accounting. Next one is your customer. When you talk about accounts receivable, we are talking about customer. Any transaction that you are posting for customer is a straight away related to accounts receivable. What you are doing with customer is a secondary. But if you are seeing a customer in the picture, this is upfront related to accounts receivable module. Next one, fixed asset. Anything that you are looking at the fixed asset, it is easy to understand what is a fixed asset, like land, building, plant, machinery, furniture, softwares, licenses, motor vehicles, cars. These kind of things, whenever you come across, these are all related to fixed asset. Whatever you do with fixed asset, whether you purchase it, you depreciate it, you sell it, you scrap it, you transfer it, this is all related to asset accounting module. In short, another subledger accounting in your accounting part. This I'll say asset. Next one is your cash. Wherever you will see cash, this is related to cash accounting. You will be dealing a cash separately because cash is a subject to daily reconciliation in any organization. I'm talking about if I'm dealing cash in my organization, I am supposed to perform cash reconciliation on a daily basis. I need to check what is the available cash at the beginning of the day and what is the available cash at the end of the day. Are my cash transactions tallying with my cash balance? Let's say I did some 10 transactions today and I had 100 rupees in the morning. I did 10 transactions for 1 rupee each. So 10 transactions plus 10 rupees should give you 110. When I look at my closing cash, when I physically count my cash, it should exactly match. So to check this kind of a cash reconciliation, to ensure your cash is monitored properly, you will have another functionality called cash accounting in SAP. Next one, banking. Same like your cash, your bank is also subject to reconciliation. Cash is a subject to daily reconciliation. Bank is a subject to reconciliation based on the business requirement, but it is mandatory to complete the bank reconciliation by month end. You need to make sure that the bank balance that you are representing in your bank account as per the bank statement is exactly matching with the bank GL balance that you are representing on your balance sheet. To make sure that the bank balances are properly matching with your bank GL account balances, you need to make sure that you are performing bank reconciliations. To perform bank reconciliations, there are different processes, different prerequisites that you need to use from the bank accounting point of view in SAP. Next one is your taxation. When we talk about taxation, this taxation is straight away related to two modules, accounts payable and accounts payable, accounts receivable, because your taxes are applicable on purchases, your taxes are applicable on sales. Purchase is part of accounts payable, sale is part of accounts receivable. So how you are going to deal taxes while purchasing, how you are going to deal taxes while you are selling. This you need to understand. The last one is your integration. When you talk about integration, how your SAP FICO module is integrated with other modules. Basically, there are different module integrations, but commonly we will be talking about integrations related to FIMM and FIST. Integration with purchasing, integration with the sales. How your purchases are integrated with your finance or accounting. Similarly, how your sales are integrated with finance and accounting. These points we will be understanding from the integration point of view. Now, to list out certain basic entries from this, you need to understand what kind of entries are possible from this. So, GL accounting includes everything as we said. When I say GL includes everything, I will be taking GL at the end. First, I will take my accounts payable. If I talk about accounts payable at the beginning, we know that accounts payable is always or is all about your vendors. You will have different names for vendor. Some call it as vendor. The same number is called as supplier. You also call it as creditor. You also call it as seller. Okay, there are different names through which this is represented in the organization in the accounting point of view. For every name, you should not get into any confusion. Make sure you are able to understand, you are able to relate these points, this terminology with accounts payable. When it comes to accounts payable, basically what is going to happen in the accounts payable? So when you talk about accounts payable, here you're talking about a business process. When you're talking about a business process, you need to remember 2 points. One is your 3 points, master data. Second one is your transaction data. Third one is your reporting. So you need to understand what kind of a masters are applicable for your accounts payable, what kind of a transactions are applicable in your accounts payable, what kind of a reports you are going to generate from your accounts receivable. Let's say in the accounts payable, you are going to create vendor master data. You are going to create transactions like purchases, returns, advances, and then payments. Let's say these are the kind of entries that you're recording in your accounts payable. And what kind of reports you're going to generate from your accounts payable? I will say vendor list. I will say vendor balances, aging, I'll say payment details, something like this. I will be having different requirements of the reporting. So on every module that you take, for every module that you pick up, make sure you're able to understand the basic requirement, the basic business processes, basic business operations in any organization. If you understand these points at the base level, you will have something striking in your mind. Okay, this is what is executed, these are the stages that are used or followed in a real environment. Accordingly, you will have to start thinking. It's not that whatever is there on the SAP configuration you will practice the same thing. That is not going to help us anywhere. One sec. Sorry. So we need to ensure that all the points that are related to accounts payable, you need to understand from the business point of view, not from the SAP point of view. SAP point of view, we will end up understanding the config only. What is the configuration step for this? How do you configure? How do you maintain this setting? How do you create an invoice? This is an end user point of view from the accounts payable in SAP FICO. But before you reach this stage, before you understand how invoice is created or any other point is created in SAP FICO, we must have understood, or we must have some basic understanding what is accounts payable, how your vendor masters are created, how transactions are posted, what kind of entries are posted, how reports are generated, what kind of reports we normally represent or we normally generate from the accounts payable vendor related side. Let's say from the accounts payable side, you're talking about vendor. From vendor side, how do you create a vendor? Now, when you practice SAP FICO, for creation of a vendor, you will go to a transaction code FK01, XK01 or BP business partner. You will create a vendor account, whatever comes in your mind, and you will save it. And we will get a message stating that vendor is created, BP is created, whatsoever. We feel that I am now able to create a vendor master. I understood how to create a vendor. I understood how to create a business partner. But practically, in reality, this is not what you are supposed to know. This is not what you're supposed to understand, because this is something to be understood. This is something to be understood by a person who wants to become a SAP end user. So our intention is not to become an end user. Our intention is to become a consultant. If our intention is to become a consultant, your focus is not on the end user activity. Anyways, you are going to become expert on end user activity for the reason that tomorrow, whatever end user is going to work, he is going to work based on your instruction, based on your training, which means as a FICO, please be on mute, those who are not talking. As a consultant, what we need to do, you need to prepare the training manual or the user manual, which will be shared to the end users. As a FICO consultant, how master data is created, we need to create a document, we need to share it. Similarly, how transactions are posted, you need to prepare a document, share it with the end user. Similarly, how reports are executed, you need to prepare a document, share it with the end user. And at the same time, you should also conduct the training session. For all the end users, as a FICO consultant, you need to tell them how to create a vendor master. You need to tell them how to create purchase transaction, return transaction, advances, payment, and how to generate different reports from SAP. In this process, whatever the questions, queries, clarifications that the users are requesting, make sure you are able to clarify their questions and then confusions. In this process, you anyways have to know the end user activity. It is not that specifically you practice this end user activity. Now here, point that I want all of you to remember is, when you're practicing, what you're practicing, on what base you're practicing matters a lot. Normally, what we will be doing, you will configure, let's say, accounts payable configuration. When you complete, you will be testing whether your configuration is working fine or not. In this process, what we normally do, majoritarily, we will be creating so many vendors. I will create 10, 20 vendors. But in reality, why are you creating 20 vendors? Because these vendors will be created by end user. Now, unconsciously, we are practicing something which is the activity of an end user. So we have to be practical. You have to be very practical. In real time, when you become a consultant, are you going to create vendor master? If yes, practice it. If yes, how you are going to create the vendor master, at what stage you will create vendor master, on what basis you will create vendor master. Because vendor masters are created by the consultant, vendor masters are also created by the end user. But at what stage consultant will create the vendor master and how he will create it. And at what stage your end user will create the vendor master and how your end user will create vendor master, we need to understand. If you understand these differences, it is easy for us to understand what will be your role exactly in the project, what will be the role of the end user in a project, and where you need to understand that this is not related to your activity or this is related to some other person activity. This clarification we should have, and this is something which will take a little time for us to understand. If this is end user related, why are we doing it? Because in real time, before you hand over system to the client, you need to make sure everything is working fine. To ensure everything is working fine, you will have to test it. For you to test it, you will be testing it based on the end user activity. Whatever end user will do, you will have to do the same thing. It is same like when you give your car for a mechanic, or when you buy any new car, you want the person who is delivering the car to drive it. Now the person who is handing over the car, he will test it thoroughly before he hands over it to you. When you take the delivery of a car, when you start driving, if it is not getting started or it's creating some problem, it gives a negative opinion, a negative impression, which nobody wants. So what they will do, they will test it thoroughly from their side before they hand it over to you, which means they are driving your car before you drive your car. Similarly, in the application also, in the SAP also, it is the same thing. Before you hand it over the system to the client, before your client is posting the entries on the system, as a consultant, you are making sure that everything is working fine, there are no errors. For this, to make sure that you are testing the end user activities, you will create a vendor, you will make sure that, okay, I am able to create a vendor, there are no errors. When you create different transactions, you will be creating purchases, returns, advances, payment. You will make sure that, okay, all the transactions are getting posted without any problems. When you generate different reports, you will ensure that I am able to generate the reports without any problem. And my reports, whatever I am generating, are fine. Now, whether the outcome you are able to validate or not, it is a secondary. But first point is to ensure you are generating a report from the business point of view, not from the consultant point of view. As a consultant point of view, when I generate any report, as a consultant point of view, when I pull out any transaction, any information, what I will be saying is I am technically looking at the system. When I say I am technically looking at the system, I am only going to post one entry randomly. I may put any date, any document type, any reference, any header text, any debit, any credit, any amount. But this is not the way your user is going to post when they are using the system. Your user will record any transaction in a systematic manner. When you are testing also in the similar way which user is going to perform. If you are posting the vendor invoice, what is the vendor invoice? What information is there on the vendor invoice first? And accordingly, you need to post it. First of all, did we see any vendor invoice first? If I have seen a vendor invoice, first of all, what is vendor invoice? Vendor invoice is nothing but a bill. When you purchase anything, you get a bill from any shop. This bill is nothing but the invoice. When you look at a bill, how do you understand the bill? How do you understand this information? Okay, this information, this bill, whatever you are understanding, you need to make sure that based on this bill, you are able to extract the invoice related information and how this is to be posted on the system. Let's say I purchased something from one supermarket. Let's say I purchased some vegetables from the supermarket and then I got a bill for 50 rupees. Now, when you look at this bill which you purchased from the which you purchased vegetables from a supermarket, how are you going to understand? How are you going to look at this bill? What we normally do, you look at the bill, you throw it. But you're from the accounting person, now you're going to become a FICO consultant. Your user may come to you and then he will tell, sir, as a FICO consultant, he is asking you, or I'm a user, I don't know, I'm not aware of SAP, I don't know, I've not worked on SAP FICO. I know that you're a FICO consultant. So I simply bring one bill or invoice copy from a grocery shop where I purchased vegetables. Then I will tell you, can you tell me how you record this bill in SAP? Now, can you say, I don't know, but this you ask end user? You cannot say that. You must know by looking at that invoice, what information will be given on your SAP screen to record that as an invoice. Now, how do you find what information is required when you want to process any invoice? Now, what will be the invoice date? What will be the vendor code? What will be the item that you are purchased? Then how do you classify the item that you purchased? Whenever you purchase, you need to classify the purchase into two kind of expenses. One is your capital expenditure, the other one is operating expense. Whether it is capex or opex, how do you segregate or how do you understand? If it is capex, how do you post it? If it is opex, how do you post it? This information, if you are unable to understand as a FICO consultant, tomorrow we will not be able to talk to the end user. Tomorrow we will not be able to understand what your user is telling you to support or what your user is telling you to give the solution on. To make sure that these points that you are able to understand, you are able to manage in your project, in your interview, wherever. We should have an understanding in such a way that tomorrow you will be confident enough to face your client, to face your user. So this is your end target before you make sure that you will not have any fear, you will not have any confusion. You are confident enough to meet or to talk to anybody on SAP FICO. For that, all the points before logging into SAP, before looking at the SAP screen, some basic points in a practical way we have to understand. If I talk about vendor, let's say when you practice it, you will go to the transaction code related to vendor, you will create a vendor, you will save it. Now, when you are saving the vendor master, now in any organization, your vendors, on an average, how many vendors will be there? You should think. Let's say today when I am practicing, today when I am configuring, or when I am preparing for my interview, whatsoever, what I would have done, I would have practiced 2 company codes or 3 company codes. Now, in my 2 to 3 company codes, let's say hardly I would have created a 20 vendors, 30 vendors, 40 vendors, 50 vendors maximum. So we will not create more than 50 vendors. Normally, nobody will practice creating more than 50 vendors. Now, when you take any client, when you take any company code in real time, where you're working as a FICO consultant, if you take a single company code, on an average, you will be having more than 500 vendors. You will be having, no surprise, more than 500 vendors, 1000 vendors, 2000 vendors also. Now, how these 500 vendors are created, how the who will create this master data? Will they create vendor master just like that? The way you practice, go to BP, go to FK01, create whatever the name comes in your mind, any address that you feel, your home address, this address, that address. It is not the way that is created a vendor master when you're in a project. For any vendor master creation, there is something called approval process or approval mechanism. If I want to create a new vendor, new supplier in my organization, what I need to do first, I need to look at the invoice copy or the supporting document that we're doing business with this particular vendor, and he is a new vendor. Once I decide that this is a new vendor, we do not have any master set up for this vendor, what we are going to do, we are going to request for a new vendor creation. When you request for a new vendor creation, you need to fill up a form. And then get this approved. There will be the authorized person to approve from the client side, who will say that, okay, yes, this is the valid vendor with whom we are going to do the business now. Once it is approved, you will be sending this to the master data team. Somebody who is authorized or who is from the master data team, they will be creating the vendor master. Once vendor master is created, they will provide the vendor code. Once the vendor master is created, vendor code will be provided to the person who requested it. Based on the vendor code, the transaction team, they will be recording the transaction. Let's say whether they want to create a purchase order, they want to create an invoice, they wanted to create advance payment or normal payment returns, whatsoever, they will be creating with the transaction. But before that, how vendor is created? Here we are not talking about how vendor is created in SAP, what is the T code for SAP, that everybody will tell. There is nothing new that you are learning in it. It's a common thing that you must know. The way you know my name is Ajay, the similar way you must know how vendor is created in SAP. You cannot forget your name, you cannot forget T code for vendor creation or how it is created in SAP. Right? You are representing a FICO consultant, you are not supposed to forget the SAP FICO basics fundamentals. But as a FICO consultant, you are going to bring your client business process into SAP. So here you need to understand how accounts payable is currently operated, managed at your client place. How are they creating vendors? Now how they will be creating vendor in SAP? How are they posting their purchases first in the current system? And how they are going to create their vendor invoices in the SAP system. Similarly, if there are any returns, how are they returning in the current system? How they will be returning, how they will be processing returns in the SAP system. Similarly, how are they processing advances to the vendor in the current system, and how they will be processing the advance payments in the SAP system. Similarly, the normal payment in the existing business process, in the existing system, and how this is processed in your SAP system. This is where you need to see. There is a terminology called as is process and to be process. This I think everybody must have heard. There is something called as is, there is something called to be. As is nothing but the current process. This is your current process in legacy system. When I say current process in legacy system, whatever the application they are using, whether it is Tally, Oracle, JD Edwards, Solomon, whatever it is, how they are currently following the accounts payable process will represent your as is process, and how they are going to follow this in your SAP. This is proposed process in SAP. What is the process that you proposed in SAP? Is it the same that they are going to do, or are they going to have any differences, any process corrections are there, or any further improvements that you are doing on the SAP? That is where you are going to say fit gap analysis. There is something called fit gap analysis. Now, when you talk about fit gap analysis, now I will say that this is what I am currently doing, but going forward in my new application, I want to do all these things, the different things I want to do. Now, in this situation, what you need to do, you need to identify whatever the to be process that you are proposing in SAP, is this standard or customized? When you talk about standard, when you talk about customized, you need to think about the configurations. Now, whatever I am expecting, if this is straight away available in SAP, if I maintain some settings, if I maintain some configuration, this process is ready to use, then I will call it as a standard process. I will maintain the standard configuration provided by SAP, then you can use the process. You can achieve what you are planning to do, you can achieve your requirement. This is, I will call it as a standard process. But your requirement with the standard SAP configuration cannot be met. There is a gap. You are expecting something which is not available in standard SAP, for which based on your requirement, I have to fine tune SAP or I have to tweak the SAP system. So this is where I am going to talk about the customization. When I'm talking about customization, I am trying to fill the gap with the standard system behavior and with your expectation. Your expectation is X, system behavior is Y. Now, how I am going to match your X and Y is based on the customization. Either I need to tell that this is not possible in SAP, this is how you can use it, or this is how you need to manage with it. Point number one is that I need to manage, or I need to convince the client to go ahead with the standard SAP process. If your client is not okay with the standard process, they said that this is our legal requirement, this is our management requirement, they want data to be processed in this way, they want update or a report to come in this way, then no other option, you have to bring the report or transaction whatsoever according to client requirement, even though it is not part of your standard. To bring this kind of information into SAP, you are going to do some kind of customization. That is where you call it as fit gap analysis. If there is a standard configuration available in the system, standard report available in the system, which will meet your client requirement, which will meet your client expectation. This is a fit. When I say fit, I am talking about a straight fit. So I can straight away fit your requirement into the standard SAP system by way of normal basic standard configuration. If it is not a straight fit, I need to do some alterations, some modifications in the system to meet according to your requirement. I am talking about gap. I need to fill the gap. Now to fill the gap, I will be using a term called RISEF. We will be using a term called RISEF objects. These RISEF objects are nothing but the gap how you are going to fill. Your RISEF represents different terminologies like report, interface, conversions, enhancement, form, and then workflow. What is the gap? How you are going to fill the gap? This is what your RISEF object. Now, this is how you have to look at a process when you're seeing it from the SAP point of view. From the beginning onwards, the way you look at the system, the way you understand the system should be different. Initially, it will be a little tricky, a little confusing part, but this is the reality. This is what you have to face. This is what you have to work when you're in a project, when you become a consultant. When we know this is the reality, we have to work, we have to put our efforts in the similar way to get adopted or to get adjusted with the process, so that tomorrow when you become a consultant or when you're facing an interview, you will have that comfortness, you will have that confidence. Because we are at the day 3, we are at the third session. Here anyways you will be having certain confusions, many things will be bouncing your mind, but that is still fine. At least they're reaching your mind and then they're going back. But anyway, we will be discussing about these points several times, so that automatically everything will sit in your mind. Now when you talk about this, again back to the accounts payable, master data, transaction data, reporting. In this, vendor is your master data, purchase, returns, advance, payment is your transaction data. What kind of reports you are going to generate? Vendor master list. I want to know. I wanted to find out how many vendors are there currently. How do you find the list of vendors? If there are any standard reports, what is the report? If there is no report, then how do I get my vendor listing? These kind of questions we need to put ourselves, you need to question yourself and then see it. So it is not that these are the transaction codes in the accounts payable. I will practice this 100 times. It's not going to help you anywhere. Now, from the accounts receivable, what is going to happen? Before going to accounts receivable, let me explain the accounting part also here so that it will be complete. Vendor master, we understood, it is not the way that we create while practicing in any organization. To create any vendor master data, there will be a separate team called master data team. They will be creating the vendor master based on the new vendor request form or new vendor approval form. This new vendor request form, approval form will be filled up, and then with the approval, this will be sent to the master data team based on the request, based on the approval. They will create the vendor master. Once the master is created, you will be creating the transactions. Let's say you will be creating a purchase. When you're creating a purchase, what accounting entry you are going to post for the purchases? Let's say, let me put basic accounting entries, FI or finance related accounts payable. Why I am writing FI finance related accounts payable is there is another accounts payable which is logistics related, which is coming from which is normally called as integration. That accounts payable entries are different. Normal finance related accounts payable entries are different. So we must understand the difference. Don't treat accounts payable as the same. It is the finance point of view accounts payable. The other one is logistics point of view accounts payable. There are differences. Here first one, I will say purchase, or in short purchase invoice. Whenever you are purchasing from any vendor, whenever you receive the purchase invoice, you will be writing one accounting entry. What accounting entry we will be writing for purchase invoices? You are going to write purchase. So when you're writing purchase, you are going to represent capex or opex. Debit, and your vendor will be credit. So when you're writing the purchase invoice, your accounting entry will be purchase account debit, vendor account credit. When you're writing purchase account debit, remember you're not supposed to create any GL account with the name purchase. Strictly, no GL account name should contain the purchase. For sales, you will create the GL name as a sales. The way you're creating sales, in the similar way, you will not create purchase. Strictly, purchase account description is not allowed in your organization. Nobody will follow this. When you're purchasing, you have to clearly specify what did you purchase. You have to clearly specify what are you purchasing. If you're purchasing an asset, that is part of your capex. If you purchase land, building, plant, machinery, whatever, you debit that respective plant account, building account, land account, computer account, whatsoever. Similarly, if you are not purchasing the asset, this is a normal expense related thing, which is your OPEX. You purchased some stationery items, you purchased some service, you paid for some other thing, you put that respective expense account. Okay, but not the purchase account. In bracket, whatever you have, capex or OPEX, it has to be the name of purchase what you have made, debit, and the vendor account credit. This is your first accounting entry for your purchase. And the second one, we were talking about returns. This is also called as credit memo. When you talk about return or when you talk about credit memo, what kind of accounting entry are we going to record for this? Your returns or credit memo is always reverse of your invoice. Whatever the entry you posted during the invoice, this will be reversed because you are returning it. When you purchase, whatever you did it, when you return it, you will do it ulta. So what I will do, vendor I'll take here, purchase also I will take here. I am just going to make credit as debit and debit as credit. Apart from this, nothing is. When you are returning it, you are going to write an accounting entry which is reversal of your invoice. The ulta side, reverse effect. Debit becomes credit, credit becomes debit. This is during your returns. Next one, third one, you will have another point called advance payments. When you talk about advance payment, what kind of entry we will be recording when you make advance payment? Whenever you make any advance payment, your vendor is receiving the amount. You are going to write vendor debit, and I am going to write bank outgoing credit. Vendor account will be debit, bank outgoing will be credit. You should remember the accounting entries in the similar way. When you're talking about bank, not just bank, you have to be very specific, bank outgoing. And then you will have to understand later on why bank outgoing. We will understand in the upcoming sessions. And fourth one, you are going to have vendor payments. You will have two type of payment. One is your advance payment, the other one is normal payment. Whether it is advance payment or it is a normal payment, according to us it is a payment. According to accounting, this is the same entry. So your accounting entry will remain the same, but there are slight differences when it comes to reporting point that we will understand later on. Okay, vendor account debit, bank outgoing account credit. These are the accounting entries that we will be recording for your accounts payable. This accounts payable entry, which is specifically related to FI accounts payable. Now there is something called accounts payable related to logistics. Let me write this. FIMM related accounts payable. So in short, this is coming from your logistics or EMM side. This accounts payable is originated from your logistics side or from your EMM side. Here, what is going to happen? Now here you need to understand something called P2P cycle. This is all related to accounts payable. When somebody is asking you, do you know accounts payable? Have you worked on accounts payable? Have you practiced accounts payable? Your accounts payable is incomplete if you are not representing FIMM integration. If you do not know FIMM integration, and if you are not aware of the accounting part, accounting entries, the process flow in FIMM integration, we cannot say that I know accounts payable or I have practiced, I understood accounts payable. Okay, this is because your accounts payable majoritarily used in any organization is related to logistics side or MM side. Finance related accounts payable is very rarely used. It's only, I would say, 10-20%. 80 to 90% it is all related to logistics. Because if your company wants to purchase anything, nobody will go to a shop and nobody will go and purchase it. What will company do? They will place the order. They will call the supplier, they will tell, we want this material, we want this product, we want this service. So what the other person or the other company will do, they will arrange the product or service. After the product or service is arranged, they will give you the bill or they will give you the invoice. Based on the invoice, somebody else will approve it. Yes, this product we received, this service is completed, you can make the payment. Now when you know that this is what is normally happens in any organization, this is represented by logistics process or the integration process, in short P2P cycle. When you talk about P2P cycle, it always starts from purchase requisition, and then I'll put purchase order, I'll put goods receipt note, invoice receipt, and then payment, bank reconciliation. This is what we need to represent when you talk about P2P cycle. Now, creation of purchase requisition is optional, but from purchase order it is mandatory. When you talk about P2P cycle, from the purchase order it is mandatory. Purchase requisition, if you write or you don't write, if you tell, you don't tell, it is acceptable. But from purchase order, you must start. Now, purchase requisition is just a request that somebody is raising that we need to purchase this product for our department, for our division. Now, who will do this? Let's say you are working in any organization and you want to purchase a product. You wanted to purchase a product. Let's say in your company, new employee joined. Let's say you are working as a finance manager or you are working as a team lead for a particular project for a particular team. In your team, new employee has joined. When you know that new employee has joined, this new employee requires a laptop. Now your IT department is telling that currently there are no laptops, all the laptops are out of stock, we don't have any laptop now, you please raise a request. When they say you please raise a request, you need to raise a purchase requisition because there is no existing laptop. If there is existing laptop, the IT department will allot or allocate one laptop to the new staff or new employee. Since there is no laptop in the organization, what you have to do, you have to raise a request that in my department so and so candidate has joined as a new person and we need to provide a laptop to him. I understand that from the IT department there are no laptops in the stock. Please approve to arrange a new laptop or whatsoever. Once you raise this request, this will go to the finance team. Once you raise this request, it will go to finance team or somebody who will say that okay, this is a valid request, please initiate the purchase of a new laptop. Based on the purchase requisition, if your purchase requisition is approved, you are going to give this purchase requisition. This is nothing but PR. This PR or purchase requisition, you will give it to the purchasing team or procurement team. This purchasing team or procurement team, what they will do, they will see, okay, you wanted to purchase a laptop and the expected configuration is 512 GB hard disk, 8 GB RAM, i5 processor should be there, or Windows it should be there, whatever it is, whatever the criteria that you have. Based on this criteria, they will check in the market from where we can buy this kind of laptop. Okay, they wanted a Dell laptop, they did not mention any brand, we can go ahead with any laptop, any brand within the budget. Now they will see what is the budget for purchasing a laptop. The same thing, if you wanted to purchase a laptop, if you wanted to purchase a mobile, you straight away go and purchase whatever you like it, right? You will see what is your budget. Within the budget, you will try to pick the best one. Same thing is followed in any organization. For every purchase that you are requesting, there is a budget for it. Based on your designation, based on the department, division, whatsoever, there is a budget predefined. According to that budget, your purchase order will be created. Once they identify a vendor that, okay, from this vendor we will be purchasing it, they will place an order to the vendor. Once the order is placed with the vendor, what will vendor do? Vendor will produce or vendor will supply the laptop. You are going to receive the laptop, that is nothing but your GRN. Once the laptop is received, you are going to verify whether this is the same laptop that you ordered or it is something else. Sometimes you ordered a different model, you may get another model. You order one color, you get another color. There may be mismatches, there may be variations. You have to ensure whatever the product you wanted to receive, you received the same product. Once you feel that yes, I received the same product, what I will do, I will confirm that yes, the product received is working fine, this is what we wanted. Then when you receive the invoice or the bill from the vendor, you are going to say that product is already received, everything is okay. Then I am going to record my invoice. When I record the invoice, that is where I am going to release the payment to the vendor. Once payment is made, I will be performing bank reconciliation. This is in short your P2P cycle. So this P2P cycle, you must know, you must remember whenever you talk about accounts payable, right from the beginning, the moment you hear a term called accounts payable, if you're not talking about P2P cycle, whatever you tell in accounts payable is invalid. Nobody is going to say that you know accounts payable if you miss this. Your accounts payable is incomplete without P2P cycle. Now here, what we are going to do in purchase order, goods receipt, invoice receipt, payment, bank recon, here also you will get accounting entries. In purchase requisition, I will say no accounting entry. Purchase order also there is no accounting entry. In goods receipt, there will be one accounting entry. Here, your accounting entry will be invoice, material or asset or expense debit, and GRIR clearing will be credit. This will be your accounting entry. During your GRN, you will be debiting either material. If you are purchasing material, material will be debited. If you are purchasing any asset, your asset will be debited. If you are purchasing any service or any consumables, you are going to debit the expense account and you will be crediting GRIR clearing account. This will be your accounting entry for GRN. When you receive the invoice, you are going to put GRIR clearing debit followed by vendor account credit. This is the accounting entry which is going to be recorded when you make any invoice receipt. Once the invoice is created, you are going to release the payment to the supplier, for which your accounting entry will be vendor account debit and your bank outgoing will be credit. And finally, when you do the bank reconciliation account, you are going to put bank outgoing debit and then bank main credit. This is the accounting entry, or this is the P2P cycle from the logistics point of view. If the data is coming from the logistics MA module, this is what is going to reflect in your accounts payable module of finance. So these points from the logistics point of view, which is related to integration, and from the finance point of view, we must understand.
Kami hai Shakti.
Clear?
Kami
Any
hai.
question?
Yes, sir. So what type of account is the GRIR account? Is
Which
it
one you are not?
liability account? Or
This one.
what type of account is it?
Just remove this one.
Once.
No, there.
Just
Y-
give me a
Yes.
minute.
Oh shit.
Yeah, please go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I was asking the GRIR account. What type of account is that? Is it? I understand the debiting of the assets because that's an asset account, but the GRIR account, what kind of account is that?
So normally, what will happen? This is a purchase which is made based on the order. Like, let's say I have created a purchase order, and I said that there is a laptop to be delivered to you. Now, since I created the purchase order, I am creating the purchase order from India, and then I want this purchase order to be delivered in US. The product to be delivered in US. Now, the product will have to be received at your end. Now, I do not know whether the product is received by you or not. So what I want you to do, the moment product is received at your end, you need to look at the product. When you look at the product, you are going to have the purchase order copy with you. You will look at the purchase order. Okay, this is the laptop. Okay, I received a laptop. This is Dell laptop. What I received is Dell laptop. This is Dell Latitude 1234 model. What you received is Dell Latitude 1234. Configuration is the same. It is working. Once you make sure that the product that you received is working fine, you are going to confirm the receipt of it, that the product is received. This product received confirmation is nothing but a GRN or goods receipt note. When you record this goods receipt note, what you are going to do, you are going to debit the material or the service or the asset, whatever is received. So you are going to debit this, debit the respective material account, asset account or expense account, and you are not going to make the payment immediately to the vendor. Because what will happen, today you receive the goods, but immediately you cannot verify that what you received is right or wrong. Sometimes you may receive the shipment in the container, sometimes you may receive the product in a big carton bag. You cannot open everything and then verify. It takes a little time for you to confirm, for you to verify that whatever the product that we received is correct one. Once you confirm this, or unless and until you confirm this, your vendor is not supposed to get paid. So for this purpose, what you are going to do, you are going to record that inventory or the material that you have recorded is received, but the liability you are not going to post in the vendor account. If you make the liability in the vendor account, in general scenario, all your companies will not have the detailed track on the payments. What they will do, they will go by the due date. Whatever the amount that we are supposed to pay to the suppliers by today, they will make sure that we will release the payment today. Now, in this situations, what you will do, you will not put the liability on the vendor account, considering the fact that unless and until I receive the confirmation that the product is received is fine, I am not going to release the payment. In this case, what I will do, I will receive the GRN. While processing the GRN entry, I will put a credit to a GRIR clearing account, which is a temporary control account. When I say temporary control account, this is holding my liability for time being until I receive my invoice, until I get the confirmation that the product or the service is properly received by the respective department which has received it. At that time, when I get the confirmation that the product is received, I will punch or I will ask the user to record the invoice. When the user is recording the invoice, in short, we are posting the liability in vendor account, and we are creating we are transferring liability, or we are making the temporary liability called GRIR0. This is just to make sure you are not making payment to the vendor before verifying the product is received and before verifying the invoice that you received is correct one. So this is called your
So the
integration. Go ahead.
so the GRIR account is a liability account.
It's a liability account, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Sir, actually, I have one question regarding, sir, what is the logic behind the PR and PO that no accounting entry has been generated in SAP? Any logic is there, means for PO, PR and PO?
Because your actual process starts from the purchase order. Okay, let's say if the process is starting from the procurement department, what they will do, they will directly create a purchase order. Sometimes I am trying to sell something, I'm trying to sell some product to my customer, but I found that while selling to a customer, certain products, certain parts are missing, or certain materials are missing. As I say that I feel that the stock is a shortage, or we are running out of stock. what I will do, I will not create the purchase order because I'm in the sales department. I'm not supposed to create a PO, correct?
Correct.
So what I will do, I will raise a request. I will raise a request to the purchasing team where they want to create the purchase order or where they want to arrange the products of this particular material so that we will not lose the customer. Now we are getting the customers, but we are running short of stock or there is no stock. So I will raise a PR, which is nothing but purchase request, and I will give this purchase request number or PR number to the procurement team or purchasing team. When I have a purchase requisition, what procurement team will do, they will convert that purchase requisition into purchase order. We call it as PR to PO conversion.
Okay.
The similar way in your accounting, you convert a down payment request into down payment, correct?
Yes, correct.
In the similar way, purchase requisition will be converted into purchase order. Once they create the purchase order, it is the same process again, because the purchase order is the agreement, legal agreement between the buyer and seller. When I create a purchase order, I am going to tell you that what product I want, at what quantity I want, on what date I want the delivery, and what is the agreed rate, and where this product to be delivered. This is what I'm going to represent in my purchase order. Based on the order, your supplier will deliver the same product at the respective address that you have mentioned in the PO, correct?
Okay, correct.
So during the purchase order, it is only an information to the supplier to supply or to give a particular product or a service on or before this particular date, which is your delivery date, at this particular location, at this particular price. This is just an agreement to make sure,
Just an
correct, to make sure when you receive the product, the person who is receiving it will know that, okay, what we ordered, what I received.
just PO related is some information related right? Not
Correct,
any incoming or outgoing related transactions. That's why no accounting entry has been generated. Okay. And another is, sir, info record and source list also is there, sir. Before PR, info record, we have to create the info record and source list also,
info
right?
records are created by the MM side. We are not responsible for it.
Okay.
It is from pure
side,
MM.
right? Okay.
So I have
Okay.
some doubts with the sorry. So I have some doubts with the payments portion of it. If the vendor account's a liability account, and we're increasing it because we clear the GIR account, why is it showing up as a debit? Because the debit is going to reduce the account.
This is because when you look at the invoice, in the invoice you have credited your vendor. When you credited a vendor, which means your vendor credit represents there is a liability. You are liable to pay to the vendor. Once
Yes, and
you
it's
find that there is a liability to a vendor, you have to clear your liability. To clear the liability, you need to pass a debit in the vendor account. So credit can be offset only with a debit.
correct.
So that is where you put vendor account debit on the payment.
Okay.
Clear?
Understood. Thank you. Yes, clear. Thank you.
Yeah. Good evening, sir.
Good.
Yes.
Hello. Ajay sir, Shabazz this side.
Yes, Shabazz, go ahead.
Sir, if we procure any service, then what will be the P2P process?
Same process. You are going to debit the service account, which is nothing but your expense. Any service you treat it as expense. Like repairs and maintenance and all, you will be treat. The remaining process will remain the same. That is why in the GRN I put material / asset / expense. So where you are covering inventory, stock related purchase order, asset related purchase order, and then your consumable or expense related purchase order. In short, service.
Okay, sir. So, sir, after making the PO, then we also need to create the service entry sheet, right?
Service entry sheet is created only for the service related purchase order.
Service related purchase order. Okay, sir. Okay.
Okay. In the
Okay,
purchase
thank you,
order, you will have something called account assignment category. This account assignment category will decide what kind of a purchase order it is, whether it is the material related PO, asset related PO, expense related PO, or your service related PO, or consumable related PO.
Okay, sir. I got it. Thank you, sir.
Hello, sir. I have a
Good
question
evening,
here.
sir.
Yeah, one by one, go ahead. Yes, Vijay
With
Kumar,
respect
go ahead.
FI payables, and in FI payables already we have asset purchase and operating expenses entry, right? Again here in logistics here again we have asset and expense related entries here. How makes it is different? What is the difference between these two?
Let's say if I wanted to purchase something. Let's say I want to purchase some in the printer. Let's say that A4 size papers are out of stock. Now I wanted to print something. My printer is telling no paper. Now for time being, what you want, you when you place the order, you are going to buy maybe 10 cartons of papers or 20 cartons of paper, correct?
Okay.
So for time being, what you are going to do, you need to manage at least one or two bundles of A4 size sheets.
Yeah.
For this, what you will do, you will not place any order. You will send your office boy to the nearby stationery shop. He will go and purchase two A4 size sheet bundles. Let's say each costing you 100 rupees. He will purchase it for 200 rupees and you will record this as an invoice. This is a direct invoice where there is no order. You have not placed any order. You directly went and purchased. Clear?
Okay, that means your assets purchase and expenses purely related to record logistics related, is it?
Correct. If there is no purchase order involvement, then this is your finance point of view. If there is a purchase order involvement, this is logistics point of view.
Okay, thank you, sir. Got it.
Yeah. Any other question?
Yeah,
Yeah,
sir.
good evening, sir.
Once. Yeah, go ahead, Priyanka.
So, actually, this purchases happen through purchase order only. I have received my invoice along with that goods. Now, is it needful to use this GRIR account, sir?
Yes.
Why,
GRIR
sir?
is a mandatory to release the payment to the vendor unless and until you validate. Because someone will have to confirm that whatever the product or the service that is received is correct and the invoice that received is for the same thing. Let's say
Yeah.
you ordered one mobile phone. Let's say you ordered a Samsung mobile phone, or I ordered a Samsung mobile phone for you for 20,000. Let's say the person who supplied the mobile phone, he by mistakenly supplied that I ordered a 20,000 worth mobile phone, but unfortunately that mobile phone is not in stock. He sent another model which is 24,000 or which is, let's say, 22,000. He sent that product. He believed that okay, he's a known customer to me, he will pay extra 2,000 also, that is fine. He sent the other product to you. Now according to me, I want you to receive a product which is costing 20,000, correct? Model A.
Yes, sir.
Now you received model B which is costing 22,000. You do not know the bill of it because you will only receive the product, you will not receive the bill. You do not know what is the price of it because when you receive it, you will only receive the packing slip or packing list.
Yes, sir.
Now what you are going to tell, you will tell that Ajay, I have received the mobile phone, thank you very much. Then I will tell, okay, enjoy with your mobile phone. Now I will receive the invoice. According to me, what will be the invoice value?
20,000 only.
20,000, but I received invoice for 22,000. Now I'll be okay or not okay?
Maybe that is at your option.
Right? Now according to me, I already discussed with you to send this particular mobile which is 20,000. Now why did you send a 22,000 mobile phone? You have to inform to me first, because it is not something that I'm paying from my pocket. I need to pay from company's pocket. I need to go and give a justification why 2,000 more, correct?
Okay, sir.
Now for this, I need to make sure before I record this invoice, I will make sure that the product that you received is the same thing that I ordered. So I will make sure the same product is received, same quantity is received at same price. If there are any mismatches, I am not going to record the invoice. If I am not recording the invoice, I will not be able to make the payment to vendor, correct?
Yes, sir.
Because to make sure everything is in line, I am parking my liability in the GRIR account. Once I ensure everything is fine, everything is aligned, that is where I will move the liability from GRIR account to the vendor account. Then the finance team or the treasury team will release the payment to the vendor. So there is something called matching concept. There is something called two-way matching. There is something called three-way matching. Whenever you're talking about any accounts payable, any purchasing, it is always based on two-way matching or three-way matching concept. If you're talking about a two-way matching, you are going to validate purchase order with the invoice. If you're talking about three-way matching, you are going to validate, you are going to verify purchase order, goods receipt, and then invoice
Invoice,
receipt.
debit. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, everything must be same quantity, same amount must be there at purchase order, at invoice, at GRN. If you're talking about two-way matching, at purchase order, at invoice, there must be same quantity, same amount.
So for the usage of GRIR account, I have, I mean, earlier I have read two reasons, sir. One is time gap between goods receipt and the invoice, and another point is to close that particular month books or whatever. We use this GRIR account for liability. Is I'm wrong, sir? Whatever you said, I cannot fix these 2 points in your example. With that, I'm asking.
Repeat your point number one. What's your first point? Okay, any other questions? I think are internet issues.
Yes, please. Please, can you point out now, or maybe you're coming to that, eventually, how does this P2P cycle directly link from the MM side onto the FI side? And secondly, how does this, how do we fit in advance payments into this P2P cycle?
So MM to FI connection. Okay, you will be enabling the connection from MM to FI based on account determination. There is something called account determination. Based on this account determination, your MM will hit or MM will trigger the accounting entry. For this, there is a setting called FI MM integration, which is OBYC. There is a transaction code called OBYC. In this OBYC transaction code, you will be updating on what basis system has to detect your GL account. Your vendor account will be detected straight away from the purchase order. Correct? In the purchase order, you are going to mention vendor account. Your vendor account will be detected from the PO. The offsetting account, whatever is there, is detected from your FIMM integration OBYC. And when it comes to advances, whenever you are creating any purchase order, you have something called PO advances. In the PO advance, you will have to mention that if this purchase order is relevant for advance payment. If this purchase order is relevant for advance payment, in the purchase order, at the header level, you need to mention what is the advance payment that is needed for this purchase order. You can either mention the advance in the form of amount, or you can mention the advance in the form of percentage. Let's say my purchase order value is 1000. I want to release 300 as advance payment, or I want to release 50% advance payment. When I mention this information on the purchase order, accordingly from the purchase order, we will be creating a down payment request. So you will be creating a down payment request. Based on the down payment request, the advance payment will be made by the finance team. Clear?
Okay, so the request is sent in along with the purchase order as a condition
Yes.
for the supplier to release everything. So until the supplier sees the down payment along with that purchase order, they do not submit their goods, right?
Correct. You're right.
Okay.
Then what is non-PO, sir?
Non-PO is you will directly go and walk in purchase, we normally say, right?
Yes, sir.
Right? Whatever you
Non-PO.
purchase,
Go ahead, sir.
for non-purchase order, whatever you do is the direct purchases or finance related purchases, where these are the accounting entries that you are going to pass directly. You don't refer any purchase order and all, straight away you will pass the entry. No need of any verification, no need of any confirmation, because when you're purchasing without any purchase order, somebody is going and picking the product or service straight away. Correct?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Is a point clear, or if you still have confusion, you can ask again your
Yeah.
question.
Clear, sir. Clear.
Yeah.
Yeah, sir, good evening.
Yes, good evening.
Sir, my question is, as a SAP FICO, we must aware about how to create a customer or how to create a vendor. But in a last session, you told us that the vendor master data and the customer master data prepared by the MM team and the SD team respectively. So,
Correct.
may I know, as a FICO, what we have to be required or what prerequisites we have to be follow at the time of creation of a vendor master, for example, by the MM team?
You need to make sure the right reconciliation account mapping you have provided to the MM team. Let's say when you create any vendor, when you create any customer, your customer or vendor cannot be created with the grouping. You have vendor grouping, you have customer grouping, correct? Let's say domestic vendor, foreign vendor, employee vendor.
Okay, sir.
For every grouping, there will be a respective or a relevant reconciliation account. If I am selecting domestic vendor, I must select domestic payable reconciliation account. If I am selecting foreign vendors, I must select foreign accounts payable account. If I am selecting employee vendor, I must select employee payable GL account. This account group and the reconciliation account mapping you need to provide to the MM team. Similarly, to the customer group and the customer reconciliation account mapping, you need to provide to the SD team. Now, whatever the customer related to purchase order, whatever the vendor related to purchase order, whatever the customer related to sales order, which means PO related vendor, SO related customer will be created by MM and SD consultant respectively. Any customer which is not relevant to purchase order, which is not relevant to sales order, which means not relevant to purchase organization, not relevant to sales organization. On the other side, pure finance related transactions, wherever you are going to perform, these vendors you are going to create from your side as a FICO consultant. In short, employee vendors or one-time vendors, finance vendors you will be creating.
Okay, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Sir, non-PO related purchase executed from the side of FI part, right, sir? Not MM side. Non-PO
FI side. Correct.
FI side. And one more question that we have created purchase order according to our requirement, but whenever we have received the goods, we found that there is some mismatch related to purchase order. Then what should we do in this situation?
Mismatch, when you say, what kind of mismatch is it? Is this
Mismatch means
quantity mismatch,
the
price mismatch?
quantity mismatch, price mismatch, tax code related mismatch, wrong material they have sent. That kind of means that we should, as a FICO consultant, what should we do in this situation? Yes, I just wanted to know.
Point number one, you will be returning the product. Point number two, if you're not returning the product, then you'll have to pass the subsequent debit, subsequent credit or credit memos against that purchase order to do the adjustment of quantity or to do the adjustment of value.
Okay. And another term is there is price difference also is one term, right, sir? This is if the price is not mismatched according to purchase order, that price difference will come in this picture also, right, sir?
Yes.
This is better to show the system only. I mean,
Yeah, this we are trying to understand to just get an idea, so that when I show
okay,
in the system, I want
right,
you
right,
to visualize everything. So it is not possible when I show in the system. Point number one, nothing will be clear,
right, sir,
because you will
right.
be focusing on where my cursor is moving, why I am going to
Yes,
that screen, why I am coming to this screen. Your focus is at that level, which we do not
yes,
want. When I'm doing this, I want you to think what I'm doing. I want you to understand what we are going to do on the system,
okay,
so that you
right,
will
sir.
focus what we are doing on the system. You will understand what is happening, what is our requirement, what settings we are doing, how we are testing. For that to happen, no other go. First, we need to have the basic understanding about the process.
Process, right, sir, right. And one more topic, sir, that how many purchase order in the system, means what type of purchase order uh, we have maintained in our real-time scenario.
You will have local purchase order, import purchase orders, intercompany purchase orders, STO purchase orders.
Okay, okay,
Okay,
got
all
it,
right.
sir.
So next,
Hello. Yeah.
let's go to the second point. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Sorry. You had said earlier on that uh, the MM side, they can create a vendor. You know that they are the ones that create a vendor. But then on the FI side, we have to also create vendors uh, relevant for FI. So I guess my question is this: this is because this is one of the questions. Sorry, one of the confusions I have with S4HANA. If from the purchasing side they have a vendor that they will say, example, the vendor is say like IBM, they'll create a master vendor for IBM, and so the vendor already exists, you know, IBM. So on our side, if we have to now turn around and create a finance vendor, say we have to pay IBM, do we duplicate that vendor, or do we use that vendor, or do we extend it to finance?
When you're in ECC or when you're in S4HANA?
Both. For ECC, it's pretty straightforward. You know, I understand it. You know, but my logic is, or my reasoning is, if purchasing has one vendor that's called IBM, and then I turn around as FI and I create or another vendor that's IBM, is that the logic? And then in
Let's say
S4HANA,
uh, you're purchasing from IBM.
yes,
So
sir.
you have one way from MM side, you have another way from FI side.
Hmm.
Right? The person who is creating from MM side, will he be using the same IBM? And the person who is creating for FI side, will he be using the same code? Is this your question?
Yes, sir.
So normally in S4HANA, what will happen? Before you create a vendor, before you create a customer, you create something called a business partner. Okay, before you create vendor, before you create customer, you will be creating something called business partner. When you talk about business partner, I'm talking about IBM.
Okay.
I'm going to deal with IBM. What I'm going to deal with IBM is a secondary. Whether I purchase, whether I sell, it is secondary. But point number one, your organization is going to do some business with IBM. So I'm going to call IBM as a business partner. Now this IBM is a person or is an organization?
Organization.
This is an organization. When you create a business partner, you will be selecting organization, you will create an IBM. Now IBM is now extended as a business partner. Let's say this is the code that is created for IBM. Okay. Now next point, nobody will straight away create the IBM as a business partner unless and until you know the nature of business that you are going to do with IBM. So when I want you to, or when I want somebody to create the IBM, I need to tell what kind of a business I'm going to do with IBM. If I'm going to purchase from IBM, or if I'm going to sell to IBM. Let's say I am going to purchase from IBM. this IBM is going to be a vendor for us, correct? Huh?
Correct.
First, you will create business partner. After that, your vendor will come into picture. First, business partner. Later on, your vendor will come into picture. When you're bringing vendor into picture, you have two options here. Point number one, your vendor is also IBM only. Your IBM, you can create same code. This is one approach. Second approach, you can create another code for IBM. Both are possible. Now there is something called CVI. You must have heard about CVI, right? Customer vendor integration. There is something called
Yes.
customer vendor integration. How do you integrate your customer vendor with your business partner? Now, point number one, I can integrate in such a way my business partner code and my vendor code is the same. This is one way. The other way, I can integrate in such a way my business partner code is different, my vendor code is also different. This is also possible. The two possibilities. Now, based on the business requirement, you will set up your configuration in such a way either your vendor will trigger the same code of your business partner or your vendor will trigger a different code of your business partner. This is your option number one. This is your option number two. Both are possible. But most ideally used approach is option number two. Option number one, you have to follow the same code. Because otherwise there will be a confusion, right? You will tell IBM code is 23334 and then I will tell IBM vendor code is 45444. You are telling me the BP code, I am telling the vendor code. I am correct from my point, you are correct from your point. But end of the day, we are ending up getting into a confusion state. Agree?
Yes.
If I put your code, I will not be able to search my vendor. If you put my code, you will not be search your vendor, your business partner. So that is why you will create your S4HANA BP configuration in such a way, whatever the business partner code that you're getting, the same business partner code will become your vendor code. And when somebody is trying to create a vendor code for IBM, the first point that they should do is they should check with the name. It's not that, because it is not possible for you to find out whether this 23334 is already there or not. So what you will do, you will search with name IBM. You will find out if there is any vendor which is already created for IBM. If yes, you will verify is it the same vendor by checking with the address. If not, then you will confirm that this is a different IBM. Then you will create a new master. Clear?
AJ, thanks for the explanation. I wanted to ask, where does the business partner concept come in? Because I thought when you create a business partner, you can extend that same business partner to become a vendor by the business partner role, or you can extend that vendor into, say, if it's collections and disbursement, you extend it using the MKK role. Is it the same concept that you're explaining, or it's something else? Thanks.
Okay. When you're creating any business partner, normally what will happen? You will be first treating this business partner from the business point of view. When I say business point of view, I see that our company is going to do some transaction with this partner. So wherein I am going to create a person as a business partner first. Based on this business partner, according to the nature of the transactions that I am going to perform, we will be extending different BP roles. Maybe finance customer, finance vendor, logistics vendor, or SD related customer. Clear? What was the next point that you asked?
No, that's the one. I wanted you to outline how the BP roles can be used to extend the business partner, like FI customer, FI vendor, or MM vendor, MM customer, or MKK role, how it is used to extend the business partner. Thanks.
Okay. Yeah. Normally,
Yes,
what you will do
I
when
think Ajay, I'm sorry. If we look at this one now, we see the point where you say these rules are created, but I don't think you've actually made the statement of between the MM side and the FI side, who is the
Yes,
person doing creation and who is the person benefiting from the other.
yes.
now, okay, let's say
Sir, can you please repeat the question?
I'll list out here. I'll take ECC. I'll take S4HANA. Okay. Now I'll put the same requirement. Point number one, let's say example number one, purchased, let's say stationery items directly from a store from a, let's say Reliance Mart. Let's say this is the situation that you had. You directly purchased the stationery items from Reliance Mart. When we say directly purchased from a store, we are not representing that you placed an order, somebody delivered. You sent somebody from your office to the store, they picked up the items, they came. So this is called as a normal purchase or a direct purchase, where there is no involvement of your logistics or purchase order. Clear? In this case, what I will do, this purchase has got nothing to do with your purchase order. This purchase has got nothing to do with the purchase order. When there is no need of purchase order, when there is no involvement of purchase order, if PO is involved, MM will come into picture. Okay, if PO is involved, MM will come into picture. If PO is not involved, it's a pure FI transaction. Okay, in this case, in this example, do we have a purchase order or we do not have a purchase order?
No purchase order, sir.
In this example, there is no purchase order. When there is no purchase order, it is this case. It's a pure business transaction. It's a pure finance transaction. Here in ECC, what we will do, in ECC, I'll go to FK01 T code and I'll create the vendor. FK01 I'll go, I'll create Reliance as a vendor. Let's say I got 1, 2, 3, 4 as the vendor code. Is this clear?
Yes, sir. This is a one-time vendor, sir. Reliance is a
No, normal vendor.
okay, sir.
Okay, this is what I'll do in my ECC. And in S4HANA, what I am going to do, I cannot straight away get into vendor. So first what I'll do, I'll go to BP. And in BP, I am going to create Reliance as a business partner. Let's say I'll get 2, 3, 4, 5 as my BP number. Once I go to BP, within the BP, what I'll do, I'll assign vendor role. I'll assign vendor role. Now my vendor role will give you the same number 2, 3, 4, 5. So here I am creating Reliance as a BP first, and then I am assigning vendor role to my Reliance. So I cannot straight away create my vendor in S4HANA. Before I create a vendor, I must create a business partner first, and then this business partner I need to extend the BP role related to finance. For the company code, whatever the role that you have, FLVN00, that you need to assign, so that your BP will become the vendor. Otherwise, BP will remain BP only. If you want to convert BP to a vendor, you must assign the role related to vendor. In vendor, you have two type of vendors: finance vendor, logistics vendor. Now here, if there is an involvement of purchase order, you need to assign finance vendor role. I'll put FI vendor role. I need to put. So here I am assigning two roles. One is BP, the other one is vendor. I will have two numbers generated in my S4HANA. One representing vendor, the other one representing business partner. Now, once the master is created, here everywhere in entire AP, we call vendor. We use vendor. When I say this statement, in ECC, you will call vendor. You will call vendor master data, you will call vendor invoice, you will call vendor payment, vendor credit memo, vendor report. Am I correct?
Yes, sir.
Yes, you're correct. You're correct.
In S4 HANA, once BP is assigned to vendor role, in S4 HANA, once BP is assigned to vendor role, everywhere in entire AP you call vendor only. Until you assign the vendor role to a business partner, you call a term called a business partner. The moment you assign vendor role to the business partner, you forget the BP. Everywhere you will find BP vendor only. You will talk about vendor number, vendor code, vendor master, vendor invoice, vendor payment, vendor report, whatever it is, at vendor only. Nowhere you will bring the topic of BP. It's only during the master creation. First you need to create a business partner and assign the vendor role to the business partner. Once the role assignment is completed for the business partner, forget about the business partner. It's all about vendor. Whatever you do in ECC, whatever you do in S4 HANA, there is no change. Report, T code,
Sir,
wherever you go.
one doubt, sir. Sir,
Yeah.
if this vendor is also a customer, then how will be the approach?
It is the same. You are going to assign customer role. For the customer role also, it will be the same number. It depends on the configuration that you have done. There is something called CVI, customer vendor integration. Not
So
every
the code
customer.
will remain same, or it will be different for vendor role and customer role?
It depends on your requirement. As I said, there are two options. Option number one, you can have the same code. Option number two, you can have different code. Same is applicable for your customer. But here we need to decide what kind of customers, what kind of vendors can be the similar. Because it's a rare instance that you will do purchase and sale with the same vendor, same customer, correct? It's not a regular practice. These are rare customers, rare vendors, not a regular. So based on that, you will be setting up your configurations. According to config, you will determine whether to get same number for customer vendor or to get a different number for customer vendor. That is what you are going to determine based on CVI functionality or customer vendor integration. Clear?
Yes, Ajay, that's clear.
Yeah. All right. So basically, this is about your accounts payable. Now, if you understand accounts payable, understanding of accounts receivable is simple. It's like you're looking at a coin. Now this is heads of your coin. Accounts receivable will be tails of a coin. If you know one side, you must know the other side automatically. That is how you have to learn AP and AR. You should not put 100% effort for AR if you try to put your effort on AP. Similarly, first, if you try to understand accounts receivable, don't try to understand everything from the scratch in accounts payable, because it's exactly opposite. You are dealing with purchase here. On the other side, you are dealing with sales. The way you are thinking from your side, you should think from the other side. You are purchasing it. What if you are selling the same thing to the other person? Try to sit on the other side of the table, think. You will understand everything for the same example that you listed out. Clear up? Yes, I will talk about accounts receivable in the tomorrow's session so that you will not get into any confusion. We talk at a time together. Since we talked a lot about accounts payable, if I start writing accounts receivable, that will lead to unnecessary confusion, which we do not want. Any other questions you can ask on this?
Hello.
Yes.
Sir, how the user will understand that quantity is less or a more in purchase requisition, and the order will be purchase requisition will be done.
Your verification is always based on the purchase order, not based on the purchase requisition. It's only the internal document. Purchase requisition will not go to vendor. That is within the department, within the organization. So your differences, whatever, is always validated, always verified from the purchase order.
So where we can see that how much quantity is remaining and how much we want in SAP for
When you
purchase
create the
requisition.
purchase order, while create the purchase order, you will be mentioning what you are purchasing, whether you are purchasing the material, asset, or any service or any expense. There you will put the quantity and then rate. So quantity and rate is automatically multiplied by the system and it will produce the value. Let's say one quantity, I will say 10 rupees each or 10 each. What SAP will do, 1 multiplied by 10, it will give you 10. If I tell 10 quantity, 10 each. So 10 multiplied by 10 will be 100. It will automatically give you the value as 100. Now, according to purchase order, your quantity and amount is different. Let's say as per purchase order, quantity is 10. You will have rate, let's say 5. And then you will have amount. What will be the amount?
50.
10 multiplied
50.
by 5. This is your purchase order value. Is this clear?
Yes, sir, clear.
Now let's say as per goods receipt. Here also same thing. In goods receipt, what I am going to say, I received only, or I received a 10 quantity. I received a 10 quantity, but I received this quantity at 6 rupees each. What happened? What is the
60
amount as per
rupees.
GRN?
60.
It has become 60. Is it same or there is any difference?
Difference 10 rupees. One quantity, 1 rupees difference, sir.
1 rupee is different. Now this
Yeah.
difference is called as price difference.
Okay.
Difference between PO and GRN is equal to price difference. Now this difference, is this more or less? This difference is resulting you to pay more or pay less?
More, sir. Paying more.
More. This is resulting you to pay more.
Yes.
Now, when you write the accounting entry, so for GRN, we have listed one accounting entry wherein you are going to debit your material. Correct? Huh?
Correct. Correct.
You are going to debit your material, you are going to credit your GRIR.
GRI.
Now your material is always valuated from the material master. So when you write a purchase order price is 5, you need to look at what is the value of this material in your material master. Let's say in your material master, it is 5 rupees. In your material master, if it is 5 rupees, but the actual receipt that you did is at 6 rupees. Now there is a variation.
Correct. Yes.
Now you are going to validate this material with your material master price, let's say 5 rupees. I will say I have to debit 50 rupees only here. This is what SAP will do. What system will do? It will always multiply your purchase order quantity with material master price. And your GRIR is something, this is what your vendor sent. When vendor is telling that I am supplying at 6 rupees due to the conditions in the market, there is a shortage, the demand has increased. Now I cannot supply at 5 rupees. I will supply only if you agree at 6 rupees. Now no other option, you need to purchase it for 6 rupees.
Yes, correct.
So your vendor is going to give you the bill for 60 rupees. Now are you able to match the debit credit, or there is a difference?
There is a difference in invoice
How
and
much?
purchase order. 10 rupees, sir, amount.
So this difference is called as
Price difference.
Price difference. This will go to debit 10. Now credit, I'll put a negative number, so that when you do this total, it becomes 0. Correct?
Correct, sir.
Any other question on this?
So it can be opposite side also. Then material
It will go to right. The other side, the price difference will go to credit side.
Credit side. Okay. Right.
The price difference will act as both. One is favorable difference, the other one is unfavorable or adverse difference.
Okay.
Positive difference, negative difference.
Okay, but we need to assign the price difference GL code into OBYC setting, right, sir?
Correct.
Then it will only pick the automatic value, right? Whether it is debit side or whether it is credit, it will pick automatically. No manual entry is required for this, right, sir?
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
Understood.
Is price difference is a liability or expense?
Expense account. It's a P&L account.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
So the price difference is P&L accounts?
Yeah, it's a P&L account, expense account.
Oh.
And there is something called, in the material, you are going to have something material ledger, and you have something called actual costing. So based on this, sorry, based on these functionalities, you will be rolling up the price differences into the material cost.
Sir, it's the actual costing you have written, that it's the CO related part, we can say?
CO related part, yes.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Sir, I have one question. This is regarding with business partner. Sir, what is the purpose of that business partner and what is the advantage, sir?
You will have a single master data for one person or for one organization. In ECC, what you will have, for the same person or for the same organization, you are creating different masters. Now, if I wanted to look at the customer master from the financial side, I need to look at a different table. For the customer master from the logistics side, I need to look at a different table. Similarly for vendor and all. So I cannot club these two, even though I can connect with two different codes, but I am not representing the same master. So with your BP master, one person or one organization will have only one master record. Whatever the transaction that you're doing with that person or with that organization, assign the respective role. So there is no point of your duplicating multiple masters for one person or one organization. All your data will get recorded in the same table called your business partner related table in the backend. But apart from that, there are no major differences. The transaction wise, it is the same. From the master data wise, you are eliminating the multiple masters.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Yeah.
All
All
right.
right.
And one,
If there are no questions, yeah. Any other question? Please go ahead.
yeah. So coming back to that FI to MM integration, there we are purchasing assets and expenses we are recording, right? So if that is a bulk purchase of asset, can't we record directly in FI purchase as FI purchase?
You can record, but it depends on how you are placing the order with the customer. Let's say you are purchasing a car. Is it something that you will directly go and purchase, or you will place an order first?
Yeah, we'll purchase,
Got my
right?
answer?
Direct.
You will place an order, right? Because normally in the organization, there is nothing called a direct purchase. For everything, they have to place the order. Because your purchase will have to be approved. It's not like that I want to buy this, I'll straight away go and purchase. And then later on, I will reimburse or I'll claim it. Is this an approach which is followed by any organization?
No.
Yes, no?
No.
No, right? This approach is followed only for, you know, the small petty things. Let's say uh, you have booked a taxi for coming to office. You cannot call your admin department. You cannot tell them you book a taxi for me. What they will tell you, please book from your side, pay from your side, come and then claim what you want. Correct? Huh?
Yeah.
And let's say you are going for a lunch. Now your admin team cannot reserve a table for you in the restaurant, and they will not tell that restaurant, you give them whatever they eat, you please send the bill to me. Will this happen?
No.
You will go, you will eat whatever you want, you will pay bill there, you get the bill and get it reimbursed.
Yes.
Alright. So similarly, any purchases that an organization is doing, so they majoritarily they do not do finance purchases. Most of the purchases are from the logistics. Purchase orders will be created because your purchase will have to be approved.
Correct.
So once
If you are
the
directly purchasing like this, your audit will also raise a query. Why, how this purchase has happened? Anybody approved this purchase? How do you know that you need to purchase this item? Is there any approval mechanism? If yes, who is approving these purchases? How are you ensuring that the material is received and then you are paying to the vendor? What is the proof that you really purchased this item? Where is this if you purchased this? You are subject to audit at the end of every year. Your auditor might pick any sample and they will ask you to show the complete documentation of it.
Yeah. Correct.
Right?
so
Yeah.
it looks like an ECC is a lot of redundancy, you know. I mean, purchasing is going to make its own purchase on customer based on the PO, and then in turn we then turn around and then create the same vendor for the FI side with the same information. Kind of looks like a lot of redundancy data, redundant data.
You want to say redundant data in ACC?
Yeah, because if purchasing has to create one vendor for purchasing, and then we don't have to turn around and create the same vendor to account for the financial transactions. It's like we're having the same vendor being
From
created
the
for two
finance side,
different.
you mean to say a separate vendor, and from the logistics side, another
Yes,
vendor?
sir. Yes, sir.
No. It is the same. They extend the purchase organization to the vendor, but it is the same vendor code. It is
In
not this.
ECC.
It is not in ECC. Yes, same vendor will be there. It is not a duplicate.
Oh, okay.
What they do in ECC, when you create the vendor master, your vendor has got three segments.
Mm-hmm.
One is your general data. Second one is your company code data. Third one is purchasing data. Now vendor remains one. Vendor remains one. You are going to extend general data. General data is only name and address. Company code data is your company code and GL assignment. Purchasing data is your purchase org for PO creation. Because for you to create a purchase order, it will ask you to select the purchase organization. The way you have which profit center, all these kind of things from the FI. In the MM side, they will have different purchase organizations. When you create a PO, they need to select from which purchase organization the PO to be created, whether PO to be created from admin department, logistics, finance, HR, facilities, or R&D department. Every department they may be creating as a purchase organization. So for all these things will represent the same code in ECC. It is not different.
I see. So I mean, so what's the purpose of creating a business? Okay, okay, it's okay. I understand.
Yeah.
Ajay sir, I have received one real-time tick. Can I share with you right now or tomorrow session?
It's okay.
I need
Go
to
ahead.
clarify this. Then my company's users, they have forgotten the tick mark in GL master data, that is post automatic only tick box, and also the open item management box. So can we change or activate the open item management and post automatic only through a standard program, or is there any standard T code in SAP S4HANA? They're using the S4HANA version 1709, older
You
one.
want to
Activate open item management tab and also post automatic only. For number of there is a 50 number of GL, and
go to
can
SC38.
we AC38?
Okay.
Okay.
Note down this program name.
Fin switch to open. Okay.
Or you can take a
Then,
screenshot on your this one. Okay.
Okay. I will take.
Done.
Yes sir. Done. Then click on execute.
Execute. Take this. This is coming in German language, but in your system it will come in English language.
English language. Okay.
Okay. Select this. Activate open item. Put your GL account number.
Okay.
And put the company code. And you need to put the document type SA here. And here you put the date. Look at the first document when it was posted.
Achha.
Okay, let's say you have entries from.
Mandatory.
It is mandatory.
Sir, is
otherwise
mandatory. Okay.
it is mandatory. Otherwise, how system will understand which transaction to be converted?
Okay.
Right. The first transaction in whatever the period it is there, take that period closing date. If the first entry is in June, you put 30th June 2023. Do a test run and then execute. You will find everything green. Then remove the test run, execute in the background. It will get automatically converted into open item. All the items will appear as open item.
Achha.
That automatic posting tick can be done at any point of time. No issue with it. You can activate or deactivate anytime.
Post automatic only. There is no such as program or T code, right, sir?
No,
We
it's
have to do it manually. We have to do it manually, one by one.
No. You can do it. You can go to a transaction called mass.
Mass. Achha.
Go to mass.
Okay.
In this, open something related to GL. You find GL anywhere? GL account is here. Select this GL account.
Okay.
Execute. Now you select company code segment from there. Okay, and here once you open, put your company code your GL accounts. And you go to this particular field and bring the field post automatically only from here. You bring this particular field here.
Okay.
And you just need to select all. Make sure you tick this. If you perform this, automatically everything will be ticked or everything will be unticked.
Okay. Now we can also untick or tick here some of some chooses GL account, right, sir? Not every
Yes.
GL.
Yes.
Anything. In fin switch program, we have there one by one we need to activate or deactivate. Means we are not able to done at a single go, right? For all the GL, we need to put the one by one GL code here. There.
Yes, one by one. Yes.
One by one, right? Okay.
Yes.
Hello,
Okay,
Ajay.
thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Is it possible that you could help us and try so that we keep some of these questions within context? It's a bit frustrating for some of us who are just pure beginners. Like the language that the two of you were talking right now is pure Greek.
Yeah, I got your point.
The transactions, I mean, which you have showed now, which you have showed now, what are those? I'm really not understanding. What are those?
So these are the corrections normally when you're working in any support project. If you get any queries from the users, this is what you'll have to do. Like incorrect masters are created, entries are already posted. Users now they want to correct it. It is not possible. So they will raise a ticket, and then you will be fixing it. Now, the Ajay who asked now is a person who is working as a FICO consultant.
Okay.
So he asked the queries that he has got from his clients.
Okay, got it, sir.
Yeah.
But in general, you're going to teach all these things, right?
Yeah, we will do all these things.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you, sir.
No problem. All right then. So let me stop this recording. We will continue this session tomorrow at the same time.
Okay. Good night, sir.
All right then.
Ajay.
Same link.
Ajay.